Hello, welcome to From the Spine to the Mind, where we talk about books. Today, I'll be going over my top 10 reads of 2024, as well as my 5 honorable mentions. Now, I almost didn't post this video because I was worried that it may be like the trend of posting your favorite books of the year was kind of getting to be over, but even if I film this a decade from now, these will still be my top 10 books of 2024. So, I'm going to start my 5 honorable mentions and go from 10 to 1 with my favorites. And yeah, if you've read any of these books, let me know how you felt about them. And if you think you might check some of them out, let me know. Now, a trend that you will see with my honorable mentions is that these could have been on anyone's top 10 list or even my top 10 list. I read a lot of books this year and a lot of great books, and choosing my favorites was very hard. But my first honorable mention I want to discuss is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. James Baldwin is now one of my favorite authors. Just his prose and his ability to craft up difficult characters in difficult situations. In this book, you had themes of rejection, self hatred, being queer in an anti queer world, and having to decide whether you want to be happy and true to yourself or conform to society. And from David's side, you got to see how his inner battles, you really got to be in his mind and see how he was constantly having this fight with himself and not wanting to be true to himself. And then on the other side, you have Giovanni, and Giovanni's Room, not the book, like the idea of Giovanni's Room was symbolic for how oftentimes you feel like you can only be yourself in these itty bitty spaces, and like you have to conform yourself into this itty bitty space in order to be accepted, or you feel like you have to hide out from society in order to be who you want to be. And this was just absolutely beautiful, and I will definitely be reading more from James Baldwin in the coming years. Next, I want to discuss The Green Bone Saga by Fonda Lee. This was not what I expected. Honestly, when people were constantly talking about it, they almost talked about it as if it was this high action packed, you know, constantly just kicking, and it had some of that, but it leaned more heavy on the political intrigue, which is why I want to do a reread of it so that I can fully just enjoy what I'm reading, because I kept wondering, like, man, we all gonna start duking it out again? Like, I'm ready for some action, and that's just not what this series was. So my expectations kind of like didn't allow me to fully enjoy it, but I still absolutely loved it. So I know once I go back, I'm gonna love it even more. But just Fonda Lee's characterization, her political intrigue, like showing the background of a cartel or a gang, and showing like the political machinations, and how a lot of times, even in like I mean, gangs are reality, but like think about militaries. Wars start and end off the battlefield, and that's kind of what this book was showing you. And now you just add in this jade that allows certain citizens to have these superpowers, and you can duke it out, and if you beat them you could take their jade, and it's all about just honor, sacrifice, family. And you even had queer representation, and just showing how when it's all said and done, what are you going to do to protect those that you love? The whole time, Andon, Shay, and Win, Kilo, we had a love-hate relationship, but I still loved him. But those were my favorite characters. But also Mata, 8 Mata. God, that woman. That was a woman. She was ruthless. She killed her way to the top. And they were constantly in this war with her, this off and on war with her. And you sometimes, when you have this outside force coming for you, sometimes you have to, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that was one of the themes in this book. And yeah, I absolutely love this series. For the sake of time, I'm gonna try not to go on super long rants like that. But Project Hail Mary, now this was one of the last books that I read in December, and this was funny. I listened to it on audio. I really got into audiobooks this year. I think maybe I read 8. But yeah, this was funny. It was funny. I did not understand the science. Don't even think about asking me. After like the first chapter, I just admitted to myself I was never going to understand it. I'm not going to try to understand it. I'm just going to enjoy the vibes and see where they take me. And it took me on one hell of a journey. Now, in this, you're following this character, and he wakes up on this spaceship. Two of his crew members are no longer alive. The only other two crew members are no longer alive. And he realizes that he's here for a reason, but he doesn't really remember what that reason is. He doesn't remember how he came to be here. And you slowly figure this out as he does, and it's just, it gets wild. It gets wild. And there's one part where I was almost frustrated. It was on purpose, but I was frustrated that this character would never know how he truly felt. And I wanted to give them a piece of my mind, so I know, but just check it out. The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. Now, this was one of the first books that I read to get into fantasy. I think it maybe been my third or fourth. At this point, I was still trying to find my footing in what type of fantasy that I like. Now, I am a gory, action-packed kind of girl, which is why I said I was expecting so much action out of the Green Bone Saga. But this one delivered. I think the war scene was like 100 pages. It was wild. It lasted so long. I've never seen character growth in the span of a night, but that's what you got. You get to see characters develop right before your eyes in the span of hours, and it's just absolutely wild. Now, there are a lot of sensitive themes and topics in this book, so definitely check your trigger warning. But yeah, Takaru, my biggest op in literary history. Not my biggest, I'm gonna talk about my biggest. He's probably second though. I was so annoyed with him. I don't believe that every character should have a redemption arc. I could not stand him, and his reasonings for being the way that he is. Yeah, just check it out. But the magic system, the elemental magic system that reminded me of The Last Airbender, it was just, I could really like see and feel these characters and their powers, and I absolutely love the story. I did not love the ending. I did not. It seemed like it was a part of a series, and it is not. It is not a part of a series. So it wasn't perfect in my eyes, but I absolutely loved it and would still recommend it. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Coates is a generational talent. I am looking forward to checking out more of his work. I have one of his fiction books. I want to check out all of his books. Just his prose, at first, it took me like maybe a chapter to get used to it, but once I did, it was just absolutely beautiful. I describe this as a love letter to his son, and I say that because he was very vulnerable in this. He was telling his son about pretty much what it meant for him to grow up as a black man in America and what his son could expect, and just having to see these experiences through his son's eyes. There is so much that is packed into this little book, just the fear that is laced not only in our society but in the black community, and how because of society that fear continues to be passed down from generation to generation to generation, that generational trauma that just keeps following us. And because society has not really changed that much, a lot of the thoughts and feelings that I've had is what Coates was describing, which is why this book meant so much to me. I feel like this is required reading. I'm probably going to say that a lot in this video, but this needs to be required reading, and there's just so much that a lot of people can learn from this, but also it will help you to feel seen, that other people out there feel the same way that you do, and that we're trying to change for the better. And now for my top 10 books of 2024. So in the number 10 spot, I have These Heavy Lungs We Breathe With by K.S. Whitaker. Now, I found this author on TikTok. I saw the title. The title, it seemed like it was very poetic, like These Heavy Lungs We Breathe With, because as someone who deals with anxiety and some other things, I knew exactly what she meant by These Heavy Lungs We Breathe With. But then I saw that she said that it was sapphic, and I was like, whoa. What we got going on here? So I immediately ordered it, And I marked up the crap out of this book. I absolutely love this book. It's very poetic, it's obsessive, it shows yearning. It's these two teenage girls who go from strangers to friends to lovers, and you just follow their journey. It's hinted at very early that this is going to end very disastrously, and you can't help but to at times just fall into the hope of the main character as she's begging her lover to just don't break her heart. Even if for some reason things don't work out, just don't break me. And I just resonated with so many things in this book. I feel like whether you're a young queer person or older queer person, I feel like you can find parts of this maybe that you see yourself in. And I definitely want to check out more from this author because I could tell that she was a poet before I actually looked it up. Just because this prose, this is one of my favorite prose, just because it was poetic, and there were times where I was just like, damn, like you have to hurt me like that. You didn't have to hurt me. I love when an author can hurt me. Like, it's one of my favorite things. So, yeah, These Heavy Lungs We Breathe With, sapphic, disastrous, poetic prose. Like, it doesn't get much better than that in my opinion. And one of the things that this book taught me, not the book itself, but like the surrounding the book, was sometimes you gotta check out those books that don't really have a lot of reviews behind them. I think maybe when I read this, it had 20. Now it's over 100, but I absolutely love this book. And sometimes you gotta give those books a try. That just because not everyone's talking about it doesn't mean that it's not a good book. So check it out. Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Now, Buddy Lee is a character that I will never forget. Anytime I talk about this book, one of the first things I talk about is it's gonna be Buddy Lee, just because he was such a piece of shit. He was such a piece of shit. And the thing is, him and Ike were not good men. They weren't. You morally gray, if you will. They had both done time. Both were homophobic. Buddy Lee at times would say some very ignorant, border on racist things, and you just follow them as they realize the mistake that they made of not loving and accepting their sons in when they were alive, and now they're trying their best to make up for it by catching and punishing their killers. Now, seeing their growth, their journey, doing whatever it takes, no matter the cost. I was hooked from beginning to end. S.A. Cosby is another one who I'm going to be checking out more books from them. I'm actually reading Blacktop Wasteland right now, and I'm enjoying that one so far. It's giving me like a Fast and Furious kind of vibe, and I love that because Fast and Furious, that's one of my favorite franchises. I haven't seen maybe like the last two though, because I'm more like the OG type. Because I think they said they went to space or something. Maybe I dreamed that. I could have sworn someone said that, and I was just like, I'm not about to let them ruin my franchise for me. But yeah, S.A. Cosby, I'm definitely gonna be checking out more. Like, he doesn't have to be super poetic for you to just like be hurt. He's just real. He's gonna put it down on that paper, and you gonna feel that. And I also appreciate authors that can do that. I have a few more in here that do that, and it's just, you don't have to do too much all the time. Like, I love a poetic prose, I do, but it's not necessary for me to love a book at all. Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Ejibrenia. I really hope I said that right. I'm not gonna cry. God. There are a few books on here where if I start thinking about it, it might get me going. I'm gonna try to keep it together. Oh my gosh. If people would have told me this was sapphic, I would have picked it up several months ago. Now, on a serious note, this revolves around something that is perpetuating our society at the moment: the prison industrial complex, the mass incarceration, the profiting over the labor of prisoners. How in the Constitution, slavery is illegal unless you are incarcerated. And when you have mass incarceration and you have a marginalized group that is showing up in large numbers in prisons, it makes you wonder about the system itself and the flaws of said system. Now you have this dystopian spin on it where if you got like 20 to life, anything like over that, 20 to life, you have this opportunity to join to join a chain gang and fight to the death for your freedom. And if you get through, I can't remember how many times it was, maybe 7 times, 7, 8 times, you have to win quite a bit. And you get these things called blood credits when you kill someone, and you can take their weapons. You can use that to buy weapons, to buy tattoos, to buy food, to buy comforts while you're on the road. Like, there's just so many layers of this book, and it's literary fiction, so don't expect, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people do not do this book justice when they describe it. I feel like I'm not either. But this is literary fiction. So you get into the minds of the prisoners, the viewers, the activists, the COs, the correctional officers, the executives that run the show. You get to see all of these different perspectives and see how they interact with this atrocity that is currently going on in their society, even though not everyone sees it that way. And I feel like we have a lot of things that happen like that, where it's like you have one side of the world that's like, hey, like, this is really up. You have someone else that's like, hey, but like, it helps us, so shut up. Yeah, I just feel like this is required reading as well, and just a really interesting story. Like, I was locked in the whole time. The thing that really stuck with me about this book that is prevalent in our society is that killing is okay as long as the government says that it's okay. So, things like the death penalty or police unalivings, you have these deaths that can be justified. And that is what these games were. They were justified killings. And even though a lot of these people were in prison for doing the very thing that they are now being encouraged to do for their freedom, it's just so backwards, but it makes sense. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Now, Toni Morrison is another all-time favorite author. This is the first and only book that I've read from her so far, and I just already know. I knew when I first heard about this book that it was going to resonate and hurt me. It's surrounding the beauty standard and how racism affects the beauty standard. It follows generational trauma, self-hatred. This is a story that will stick with me for a very long time. And Little Pecola, gosh, I'm not gonna get started. I really felt her in my heart, and the whole idea around the blue eyes. I know what she means. When you look in magazines, you're in the store, you're looking at the dolls, you're looking at movies, TV shows, and everyone who is being called beautiful, everyone who is being put in the spotlight and highlighted is white. And the beauty standard is the blonde hair and the blue eyes. And I remember as a kid, like, I was really young, and I remember I asked, like, why couldn't I be white? Why couldn't I have straight hair and these pretty eyes? And I'm glad that I grew out of that pretty quickly. But I do remember my older cousin, she said the infamous line, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And this is a book that is not only required reading for people to understand how toxic and damning beauty standards are and how racism ties into all of that, but also for those little girls and the adults who, and not just little girls, little boys, anyone can feel these effects. And I just feel like everyone needs to read this. The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Now, this is one where just about every time I talk about it, I get going. Now, this book covers so much. Once again, you have racism, self-hatred, generational trauma, colonization, sisterhood. You just have so many of these themes that are effortlessly packed into this story, and the prose really puts you into the mind of the character. And this was a story that I just absolutely adored. I had so many characters that oh god, no. So many characters that I loved. There was one character in particular that really got me. Oh god, I said I wasn't going to do this. But so pretty much something happened and they were not able to raise their kid because they were forced to do the labor of someone. And just watching how this racism greatly affected this family just absolutely broke my heart, because it was not a situation that should have been forced upon them. And there are so many situations where it was forced upon them, and they just had to deal with the fall of these circumstances, which, once again, how racism plays into generational trauma. And this is one of the best books that I feel like reflects and emphasizes that, and also it's queer, so even better. I am a younger sister. I have an older sister and an older brother, but the sisterhood aspects of this is what really got me, because I cannot imagine having to go through this with my sister. Like, just, this is a beautiful, beautiful story. And I do want to read the rest of the books in this series. I didn't even realize it was a series. No one ever talks about that. But yeah, I do want to read the rest of the books. Babel by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang is, this is the only book I read from her so far, but this is one of my favorite books, and she's now one of my favorite authors. This is what I would describe as low fantasy. It starts off with kind of this literary fiction feel before it goes into more of a plot, but these are characters that will stick with me. And one of my biggest ops of literary history are in this book. I won't say who, you'll figure it out when you read it, but this is a hefty book. It's a hefty book, and it did not feel like it. I was locked into this story because something that I've always, not always, but for a good portion of my life, once I realized and became aware of like colonization, imperialism, assimilation, I felt so strongly about it, because it's just crazy how you can not only take away the home and livelihood of someone, but you can change who they are and change them for generation to generation to generation until they themselves are not even really sure of what their own history is. And that is just absolutely heartbreaking. And that is one of the things that I absolutely loved about Babel, is that you mixed in reality with the fiction. I feel like a lot of people don't like to read nonfiction, so I always believe in meeting people where you can. So many people can learn something from this book, but actually take in what is being said. Don't look at it as just simply a story, because every fiction comes from reality. That's just, it's impossible not to. So just think about that when you check this out. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Now, this was a mindfuck of a book. The prose was very, very unique, and it's one of those books where don't worry about trying to understand everything. Don't try to make sense of everything. You just gotta vibe with the vibes and just trust that you will figure it out later down the line. And I realized that early on, and I feel like that was the best thing to do, because when things started to click, I was like, what is going on right now? And I just absolutely loved it. I was not expecting this to be gory, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was so happy. And there was just one scene where I was just like, did that really just happen? There's no way that just happened. And there's another scene towards the end. I absolutely love this book. This is a book where I plan to reread it, because it's just like, now that I understand what is happening in it, I do want to just go back and be able to enjoy it fully without trying to like connect all the dots. But pretty much you have these two young warriors who are transporting a god across the land, and they run into a lot of different things as they try to get there. I definitely plan to check out more from Simon Jimenez. I have a feeling that he can also become one of my favorite authors, just because this was, I don't think many people can pull off this prose, and I gotta give it to him. I Who Have Never Known Men. This is one of the only books that I tabbed. I just have a different annotation system. I like to get them too perfect, and it was just stressing me out. But I Have Never Known Men, you have 39 women and a young girl. She's probably, I think she's like 16. They're all in this underground bunker. They're being guarded by men with whips, and they're only allowed to do certain things. And if they get out of line, they get hit with this whip. And you just follow them on this journey. And as this young woman tries to discover who she is and to create an identity when she has not really an idea of what an identity is. She has no idea what culture is. She doesn't understand the concept of dances and just those little things that you don't really put a thought to, but if someone's never experienced it before, they have no way of picturing it. For me, this asks the question of who are we when we strip away everything that makes us us. She was pretty much this blank slate that was thrust into this bunker with these women who all had these previous lives to remember and to reminisce on, and she had no recollection. And this was just an absolutely heartbreaking story of love, loss, hope, hopelessness. And there's just one particular scene towards the end that haunts me. It absolutely haunts me because it just fully captured the defeat. It just captured the mental death before the physical death. And it was just so beautifully written that throughout this whole book, I felt like I was in the psyche of this main character, and everything that was going on around it felt like it was happening to me. I absolutely love this book. I have zero critiques. I know it doesn't vibe well with everyone. I say vibe a lot. I know it doesn't jive well with everyone, but I absolutely love this book. Jacqueline Hartman can write her ass off. Like, there was a 5-page stretch where, when I tell you she put her foot on the gas and did not let up, I was just like, please give me a break. Let me breathe. But this is one of those books that made me realize how much I love to be devastated. It was a journey, and I'm gonna be searching for books that give me this same high, but also just drag me so low. One of my all-time favorites. Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This was my first taste of Octavia. That sounds... I'm gonna retract that statement. This was my first time experiencing an Octavia E. Butler book, and genius. Absolutely genius. This is what I mean, where you don't have to have a super poetic prose to get someone to really feel that emotional punch. Like, she just puts them words on the page and tells you to feel it, and you feel it. She don't gotta tell you, add all this flowery stuff. Like, you're gonna feel it regardless, and you're gonna question why you signed yourself up to feel this. Now, I enjoyed the journey of this book, but Parable of the Talents has stuck with me more just because it quite literally traumatized me. It traumatized me because I was just so frustrated and angry, and things there's just one scene that I think about, and pretty much it's about how you find your heaven and hell, and someone decided to take away that heaven, and that's my third biggest op of literary history. That really hurt me, but I plan to check out more from Octavia E. Butler very soon. I have Kindred up next. Not up next, but like within my next 6ish books. All-time favorite author, all-time favorite books. Yeah, I'm very excited to check out more because I know I'm gonna love them. Now, I'm sure that if you've heard people talk about this book, you know that it is set in 2024, a president that says make America great again. You have places that are on fire, water is expensive, oil is so expensive people don't even drive cars anymore. Like, it eerily mirrors our society, and it is a must read. It needs to be required reading, and I plan to do a reread of this at some point, and I'm not really looking forward to it at all because it's different when it's your first time in and you get hurt, but knowing that you're going to be hurt and you willingly go in anyway, it's a bit masochistic. Masochistic. Oh. This is why I shouldn't film at 1 in the morning. Oh my god. Oh, it's actually perfectly 1 in the morning. That's funny. Anyway, The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. My number one book of 2024, and also just one of my all-time favorite books. It might be my number one all-time favorite book, to be honest. Now, similar to The Spirit Comes to the Water by Simon Jimenez, this was a unique experience. It is a prose where you just gotta follow it where it takes you, and you will be paid off greatly. This has so many underlying themes of racism, oppression, slavery, and it absolutely broke my heart. Like, once again, there are just so many scenes in this that have stuck with me for the worst. Definitely for the worst. Because Shafa, honestly, Shafa might have to be my number one op in literary history, now that I think about it. I'm thinking he's one. The one from Babel is 2. Takaro is 3. And those people from Parable of the Talents is 4. It doesn't matter. Those are my biggest ops, though, in literary history. Now, this takes you places. It takes you places. And I just absolutely love N.K. Jemisin's writing. I love her stories. I love her characters. I really felt everything. I felt everything in this book. And this is this was actually my second ever epic fantasy. And I haven't looked back since because of this series. It was also one of the first series that I ever binged through, just because I was like, I need to know what happens next. I cannot go on until I know. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be checking out more from N.K. Jemisin. I read The 100,000 Kingdoms. I did not like it as much, but the ending kind of paid off for my, not lack of interest, but like I just didn't like it as much. But I'm still excited to finish that series out and to check out more from N.K. Jemisin, because all-time favorite author, all-time favorite book. I'm someone that absolutely loves feminine rage, and that is exactly what this book gave me. You had a mother who, at the very beginning, like first page or two, you realize that she has lost her young son, and the same person who unalived her young son has now kidnapped her daughter, and that person is her husband and the father of her children. And wow. You have a mother who will quite literally crack this earth in half if she doesn't see her daughter again. And beautiful story. Absolutely beautiful story. Well, that is all I have today. I don't know how long this video is going to turn out to be, because I'm looking at my, what do you call it? My microphone recording, and we're at 45 minutes. I'm hoping it doesn't turn out that long. It might be like 35. It's going to be a little lengthy, but if you've made it this far, you are a real one. You are a real one, and we're besties for the resties. We're locked in like that. But yeah, if you've read any of these books, let me know how you liked them. If you think you're gonna check them out, let me know. But also let me know what some of your favorite books of the year were and what you plan on getting into in 2025. I so far have read very random books. I read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. We need to talk about Kevin by Lionel Shriver. As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. It's just been all over the place, which is pretty much my style. So it's actually not all that weird now that I think about it. But yeah, it's 1 in the morning, so I'm gonna log off so I can stop rambling. But yeah, hope y'all have a great day, great night, great evening, great morning, whatever time you're watching this. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully I post on here frequently. We'll see.